All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Allie. I'm an educator here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. Good morning. Happy Friday. We're going to be talking about a really cool group of animals today. We are going to be talking all about stingrays and rays in general. Did you know not all of them can sting? Pretty cool, huh? Alrighty, so if you would like to ask any questions or participate with us, any comments you have, we'd love to hear from you. And this is our number right below here. It's 562-286-1838. Now, we're a little backed up on our text right now, so I would really appreciate it. We're going to try our best to get to as many questions as possible. But if you do have questions after we're live, we definitely want to hear those, but we're going to have you email us instead, and that's right below here. And that email is live@lbaop.org. That way we can respond to you and answer your questions even after our program. Now, teachers, I'm sure there's quite a few of you out there. If you have students watching, we would love if you could just text us in how many students are watching. That way we can better serve our community by gathering a little bit of data about who we are reaching. Alrighty, everyone. Now, we are going to be talking about rays. So I have this set up behind me. Now, my friend Carrie is behind the computer here, and she is putting up all these really cool images behind me. Now, this is one of our live webcams right outside. So this is our Shark Lagoon habitat. And, okay, there is a ray in here, but I put up Shark Lagoon. When we're talking about rays, does anyone want to take a guess why we would be talking about Shark Lagoon when we're talking about rays? Well, I want you to make a few observations for a moment. What do you see in here? What do you see kind of moving around? What do you notice about the habitat? Any observations that you have? Oh, Junie, why are tails so long? Oh, I think you're talking about some of our sharks. Is that right? Oh, and our rays. Yes, we are going to be talking about their tails a little bit too, and maybe what they use them for, and maybe how scientists sometimes don't know what they use them for. I know that sounds a little bit silly, but sometimes we do a whole bunch of studying, and you know what? We can't figure out the reason all the time. So we will definitely be talking, Junie, about those tails. But I want you to make some observation. What do you see in here? Oh, there's this ray. Do you see this one right here? Whoa. Now this one right here, that is a reticulated whiptail ray. Now I know you only saw her for like a second, but she is 10 feet long. 10 feet long. That's like longer than a car. 6 feet across and over 400 pounds. She's definitely one of our largest fish here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. And that's another thing I wanted to touch on. I mentioned that she, our stingray, is a fish. Do stingrays look like typical fish? Now, while you're thinking about that, Adelaide says, are rays a type of shark? Oh, good question. Maybe that's why we brought up Shark Lagoon. Oh, I like where you're thinking. Who's related to who? Now, you are totally on the right track, my friend, because sharks are cousins of rays. Yes, exactly. They are cousins, just like you have cousins, and maybe you're pretty close. Maybe you share some features that are similar. Well, sharks and rays do as well. And we're going to talk about a few of those features. Now, while you're looking at here, I want you to think, well, I mentioned that rays are a fish. And they're cousins to sharks. So sharks are fish. And there's some other fish in here too. Now, what makes a fish? Because rays look really different than, say, our California state fish, marine state fish, the Garibaldi. We'll put up a picture of that one here. Okay, perfect, wonderful. Now, this picture right here, this doesn't look like a stingray, does it? But it's still a fish. What do they have in common? Well, I notice they have fins. Do you see that they have fins? Yes, fish have fins. Those fins help them to move. They help them to maybe wedge themselves into rocks. Some fish have specialized tails really, really fast. Some fish use their pectoral fins, these fins right here, to move. And some fish, like sharks, use them to kind of glide through the water and steer. What else do you see on here? What else makes you know it's a fish? Well, I see. You can't quite see too well, but do you see this little line right here? Kind of looks like a little whoop, like a half circle, semicircle. Any idea what that is? Those are gills. You got it. Now, gills help our fish to breathe underneath the water. So fish don't have lungs like you or me or let's say a dolphin, right? Dolphins need to come up to the surface to breathe, take a deep breath, and then go back down. Whereas fish, they actually breathe underwater. So a lot of them take the water through their mouth and it goes in and over their gills, and their gills have these little filaments that help them to kind of grab all of that oxygen out, and the rest of the water kind of pushes on out. So they have gills, they have fins. What else do they have? Well, this one's a little hard to see, but I have actually something here with me that might help a little bit. Now this here is a fish skeleton, and it's in kind of a box, as you can kind of see. See that line kind of down the middle? See that line? Yeah, that line is their backbone. So if you go ahead and touch your back, you can kind of feel a spine. Exactly. That is your backbone. So fish, they have backbones, which means that rays have backbones as well. They might look a little bit different, but they do have those backbones. Alrighty, now let's talk about, the differences between rays and some other fish like this. Well, first of all, that backbone and their whole skeleton, for that matter, is not made out of bone. So backbone isn't really, it's kind of tricky in that way. But our bones, they're pretty hard, right? If you kind of touch your arm like this, it's a little firm, right? It's really hard to break a bone. I never have broken a bone. But sharks and rays, they don't have any bones, which makes them really light. They're actually not very heavy. And you can see they're also really flexible. They don't have bones, but they do have a skeleton. Does anyone want to take a guess? What is that skeleton made out of? You can shout it out. Cartilage. You got it. Exactly. Cartilage. So our nose, boop, 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 boop. If you squish it there, or your ears, you can kind of squish it there. Yes, those are cartilage as well. So much more flexible than, say, our bones. And that's what our rays have a skeleton made out of. Now, another characteristic that makes a ray, well, is their flat body. So some fish are kind of squeezed like this, just like this. They're swimming through the water, and that's one body shape. Some are shaped kind of like footballs, like sharks, whereas rays, as you can see here, they are called depressed shape. That means they're not sad or anything like that. What that means is that they're kind of squashed downward. They kind of look like a pancake. I think I like that term better. They have a pancake shape. So that is a really cool way for them in their habitat, because a lot of rays, not all of them, but a lot of them spend a lot of time on the bottom of the ocean. Well, how is that helpful? Why would you want to be flat and live on the bottom of the ocean? That's right, so you can kind of blend in. Or some rays, they go like this. They take their fins and they put them under the sand, and just their eyes stick out. So they can see things that are going across on top of them. Oh, here is our reticulated whiptail ray. That is that huge ray we saw in Shark Lagoon. Look how beautiful she is. Now she's going along the bottom, and that really helps her to kind of stay a little bit safer, and she can still see what's going on around her. Now some do some rays do have stingers. She actually does have a stinger, but not all rays have stingers, and some have more than one. Yeah, some rays can have up to like 3 stingers. I know, pretty cool, huh? But their stingers, they're not using those stingers to go after their food. They're not using their stingers and saying, hey, that looks good over there, I'm going to sting it. Bzz. No, not exactly like that. They use their stingers more for self-defense. So if something was coming up on top of them, or say a person was walking in the water at the beach and they didn't know there was a stingray right underneath them and they stepped on them. Well, do you think the ray wants to be stepped on? Probably not. So they use their stinger as a way of protecting themselves. It's kind of a warning saying, hey, 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 you're stepping on me. I'm going to sting you and I'm going to get away so I am nice and safe. Now, not all rays have stingers. So that's why sometimes you'll hear of manta rays don't have stingers. Some other rays don't, but you'll also hear the word stingray. And the stingrays, those are the ones with those stingers. And believe it or not, stingrays, stingers or barbs, that's another word for it, are not exactly where you might think. So they're on their tail. I know Junie was asking about their long tails. They're on their tail, but where on their tail? Are they at the very tip of the tail? Like if this was the tail and this was the body here, are they all the way down here? No, they're actually at what we call the base of the tail. And that's this area right here. Right where the tail meets the main body portion, that's where those stingers are. Believe it or not. So they kind of sit on top of the tail right about here, and they grow like fingernails. So every so often, you probably have to cut your fingernails, huh? Yeah, they get a little too long. Well, they kind of grow nice and slow like that too. So our rays might have a few stingers in case they, as kind of backup, but they're not really going to be using those stingers all the time because, it takes a while to grow. So if they use it when they don't have to, well, that might not be too good for them. All right, I'm going to get to a few questions. Speaking of rays, stinging, and I mentioned they don't sting it for their food. They sting it for protection. Now, we have a question coming on in. What do rays eat? That's a good idea. Now, let's take a picture or a look at this picture right over here. Do you see a mouth? Do you see a mouth on this ray? Now, to give you some perspective of what this ray is doing, it's going against a window kind of like this. So you're seeing underneath this white portion, it's underneath, and there's its eye. Do you see it on top? And the other one would be right over here. Now, they're a little bit different. Remember, their body shape is like a pancake. So if we flipped over the pancake, that's where we would find the mouth. So that's this area right here. It almost looks like they're smiling to me. I don't know if they actually are, but it always looks a little bit like they're smiling. So we can tell, as scientists, a lot about what an animal eats by looking at where its mouth is. So if a stingray's mouth is on the bottom, what might it be eating? Do you think it's going to chase after things like birds or really fast fish? Probably not, right? It's going to be mainly eating things that are beneath them. So a lot of the food sources for many rays are things like clams or crabs, things with nice hard shells, because they have their mouths on the bottom and their teeth are really unique. Their teeth are not sharp and pointy, but they're flat. Can everyone do this for me? Let's do this together. We're going to take one fist and another fist and stack them on top of each other. Now, this is kind of what a jaw looks like on a ray. And what they do is they crush just like this. So they can crush really hard a whole bunch of, say, clams. And they get that nice kind of fleshy part in the between. but then they let all of the shell out. So they have these really nice kind of crushing teeth. Oh, Aiden is asking, well, how long do rays live? Good question, Aiden. It depends on the ray. Now, the average we say for rays is around 20 to 30. That's a pretty good average, but there's several hundred different species of ray. I think there's like 600 different species. So, of course, some of them might not live as long, or some of them might live longer. But a good average around 20 to 30 years. And Caleb is asking, oh, Caleb read my mind. Wow, Caleb, do rays have gills? Yes. All right, this is an excellent picture for this one as well, because that was my next thing about rays here. Because we mentioned that fish have gills. Rays are fish. Where are their gills? All right, I'm going to give you all a moment to kind of look at this picture. Where are their gills? Remember on that orange fish we looked at earlier, it was kind of right behind its eyes like this? This one might be a little bit different. I'll give you a hint. They don't have just one gill. They have 5. So sharks and rays, in general, not all of them, but most of them have 5 gill slits. And they are, for rays, on the bottom. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have 5 slits on either side. So 10 total, 5 on either side. And they can take in water, and that's how they get their oxygen and then kind of release it as well. Okay, but hold on a second. Well, we mentioned that rays spend a lot of time on the ground. Now let's picture, if you were a ray and you're sitting on the ground, and there's sand all beneath you, well, are you going to want to breathe in that sand? Does that sound very good? Probably not. So let's get a picture up of maybe the top of a ray, and let's see if they have an adaptation that could help them. Now, adaptations are something an animal has on their body to help them to survive in their habitat. It's something that they're born with. All right, so we know that the ray's gills are underneath, but sometimes they don't want to breathe in that sand. So if they're resting on the bottom, do they have another way of breathing? Does anyone see any maybe holes that look like they might be used for breathing? Yes, these right here behind their eyes. So this is a blue spotted ray. We have a few of these at the aquarium. They're beautiful. Now, behind their eyes, they have these holes. And on the other side, we look behind this eye, we would see a hole as well. Those are called sphericals. Can you say that with me? It's kind of a fun word to say. Sphericals. Sphericals are what rays have to help them while they're resting on the bottom. They don't want to get a whole gill full of sand. So what they do is they take in water right here. It's a specialized muscle. Sometimes you can see it kind of closing like this. And they take in water, they extract all the oxygen out of it, and that way they can get fresh water or fresh seawater from above them, even while they are resting. Great question, Caleb. All right, now, how many rays do we, how many types of rays do we have at the Aquarium of the Pacific is another question. Now, let's go ahead and count it out. We have quite a few. So that really big one we saw was our reticulated whiptail ray. She's the biggest one we have. Then we have these right here. I mentioned these are called a blue spotted ray. We have cow nose rays, which we did look at earlier. They're kind of just a gray. The picture we were just looking at right before this with the white bellies and the back is black. Those are bat rays. We also have round rays. We have pelagic rays. We have a mangrove ray. We have eagle rays. I think that might be it. I'm asking my coworkers for help as well. Fiddler rays, I think, are considered actual shovel-nosed guitarfish. Yeah, so there's lots of animals that kind of have a similar, they're like cousins of rays. They look just like a ray, but might be a little different. So we're going to go with Oh, and a masked ray. Oh, Carrie is here. Thank goodness. So, yes, then a masked ray. So, 9 different kinds of rays that we can count off the top of our head here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. But that one you saw before, that really big one, she's our biggest. Oh, now, do rays lay eggs or give live birth? Is a really, really great question. So, now rays have a cousin. I know, it's like a little confusing, all this family history. Rays have a cousin that looks just like them, called a skate. Have you heard of that before? A skate. Now, they look pretty similar. They have that flattened body, they have that tail, they just have a little bit, maybe different shape back here, right here. But one of the main things that separates a ray from a skate is how they have babies. Rays don't lay any eggs. Skates do, but rays, they have live birth. I love that question. So when the rays come out, they look like little mini, they look like little raviolis. That's what they look like. And their little fins are kind of tucked in, and then they come out and they start flapping. It's pretty cute. They're almost translucent as well in some cases. But again, they look like little raviolis. But they are born alive. No eggs required. Ooh, what is the difference between a ray and a stingray is another question we got in. Great question. So I mentioned that not all rays have stingers. So when we refer to a stingray, that's going to be a ray that does have a stinger. Whereas if we're just talking about a ray, well, a ray is kind of the overall family, right? It's like saying dog, right? It's kind of the overall family. So ray could have a stinger, it could not. It kind of depends because it's the overall family. But if you're saying stingray, we know that it does have a stinger. Good question. Oh, and do stingrays hurt people if they sting you? Ah, good question. Now, I have never personally been stung by a stingray, but I've heard it's not fun because, yes, I've heard it hurts. So they do have that stinger. It's going to be located just around here, and it's not very big. I'm actually going to show you one here in a second. Now, their stinger isn't actually, let's say, stinging or shocking. What it does is it's serrated. So serrated is kind of like, have you ever used a knife at home to cut something? And it has the the little zigzags. That's what serrated means. And their spines have the serrated edges, and underneath the spine, there's venom that comes out. So yes, they can definitely hurt people. If you see oh yeah, let's get a good look at this. You can actually kind of see, this is by the way, our tropical exhibit. This is a live webcam as well. Oh, this is one of our eagle rays. There's actually both of them here. And if you look closely, you can see their stingers right on top. Now, of course, they're not using them all the time like we talked about. So we can go swimming in here and we're perfectly safe. But if we were to somehow threaten the ray, yes, they could potentially use it. And it would definitely be pretty painful. That would be something you would need to definitely see a doctor about. But again, I have not personally gone through it. But if you want to see a real stinger, again, I mentioned that they're kind of like fingernails, right? So sometimes they fall out, they'll grow back, they shed off. So we have several from some of our rays here at the aquarium that it naturally just comes off of them. So let's check it out. All right, now I'm going to come over to my camera here, and I'm going to turn the light on. Hopefully you can see my hand here in just a moment. There's my hand. Wonderful. All right, now we have it in here because it's a little breakable. I'm going to turn down the lights just a little bit. Oh, perfect. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this. Now, this is a spine, so you can see it's actually not very big. Now, what kind of ray this came from, I'm not 100% sure. We do not have it labeled, so I'm not entirely sure. But let's go ahead. I want to get a really good look at those edges here. Now, let's go ahead. Whoop, zoom on in. I'll turn up the lights, don't worry. There we go. Give it a second to adjust here. Now I know there's a little red spot on it. It's probably just some rust or something, but here we go. So this is a real stingray spine. Now again, these grooves here are serrated, so it kind of cuts into the whatever is being aggressive towards the ray, and that the ray is defending itself against. So it can kind of cut in, and then underneath this barb right here, there is some venom. Now venom could cause a variety of different outcomes, but it's definitely something that can hurt you. So this is the spine right over here. Pretty cool, huh? Oh, now we have another question coming on in. Is the flatfish related to a ray? Good question. I think you're probably thinking of like flatfish, like a halibut or something that is born like this kind of fish, but then over its life kind of goes like this and lays in the sand. Good question. They're not closely related. So they are still fish. They still have the backbone. They still have those gills. They still have, the fins, the scales, and everything. But they are not closely related, even though they do a similar thing and kind of lay down in the sand. So it's pretty cool how some different animals, even ones that are really not closely related, kind of wind up doing a similar thing to help protect themselves. They wind up doing kind of similar behaviors, which ends up really, really helping them to kind of blend in, maybe grab their food, a variety of things. Alrighty, everyone. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming and joining us today. I know we couldn't get to all your questions, and we will do our best to get to those after our program. But again, if you have questions after 9:30 here right now, we will ask that you email us instead. And that's, again, this email right below here. It's live@lbaop.org. Teachers, again, if you could send in how many students are watching this morning, we would really appreciate it. It really helps us better serve our communities, gathering a little bit of data about who's watching. But other than that, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you learned a little bit about rays and kind of excited to maybe hopefully learn more about rays. Now you can watch our webcams anytime on our website. We have quite a few of them. We have this one, we have Shark Lagoon, we have a kelp forest, we have a few other ones, including even some jellies. So definitely check it out. But other than that, thank you so much for joining us today. In a half an hour, we will have a class on plankton and jellies. Alrighty, everyone, have a wonderful day. Bye.